I'm Pop.
And I'm Todd.
And we are
Pop and Todd Games.
Today we're going to be talking about one of our favorite board game mechanisms, hand management. In hand management, basically have a hand of cards. Those cards do various actions that allow you to play the game, and there's a wide variety of actions that those cards can have depending on the game. So we're going to talk about our top 5 and kick it off. Isaiah's going to give us his number 5.
My number 5 is Castle Panic. I like this hand management game because I like this style a lot. Like this tar. It's a special, and you play it on a monster, and you want to play it on a Pacific monster. If you don't play it on this monster, you could get hurt and lose a tower, and you only have so many towers or you lose the game. So do I want to play it on the troll or the orc or this or that, you know? This is a special bad boy. There's only so many of them in the game. This is a green archer. It does 1 damage, and it's only green places. So you can be like, I want to play it on this orc or this troller, you know. And then this is the same thing like the green archer, but it's like a blue knight. So like it only in blue areas that's a knight, and you're like, I want to play here or there, you know. So that's my number 5, Castle Panic.
And on the heels of that, the game lets you trade 1 card with another player, which I really enjoy. And then as well, you can take any card from your hand, discard it, and then draw another card. So there is some nice mitigation of maybe the luck of the deck, which I enjoy that as well. And so yeah, it's a fun game. Good choice, Isaiah. All right, for my number 5, Dice Throne. And this game is a Yahtzee-style dice rolling game with cards. And these cards allow you to perform various actions, including ability upgrades. Basically, the currency in the game is called CP, or combat points. And you use those combat points to purchase cards that are in your hand. Every turn you get to draw 1 card from your deck, and every turn you get 1 CP. And you decide how to use that CP on which cards and when you want to play them, and I like the decision space that's there. There's various kinds of cards. Some of them are, as I said, upgrades, so they're cards you put out permanently on your board, make your abilities stronger. Then there's other ones that are temporary, like this head bash ability, where you just play it 1 time and you're done, and it's during your rolling phase. So it lets you change your dice, it lets you get a stronger roll. And then some of them just deal straight damage. There's just assortment of ones in the game. So I just love that. I love the good decision space that Dice Throne gives us. And that is my number 5.
My number 4 is Dice Throne.
Right, crossover. So here we go.
I like this hand management game because I like the style a lot. Like right here, we have Head Bash. This is from the Barbarian, if you've never heard of him. Well, he's a really nice starter pack, by the way. And Head Bash, if you deal at least 8 damage, you gain concussion. And concussion is very helpful, stuff like that.
And concussion is a status effect.
Yeah, it is. And this is a upgrade. It's level 3, and it does 6 undependable damage. This is another upgrade, and this is an attack modifier. Things like that, like I want to play on this turn, or maybe he has not this time. But then if you make him get rid of it, let's say on the next turn you have an ultimate, then you can beat them up. So there's a strategy to it. And I like this hand management game a lot. That's my number 4.
Nice. And there's one other fun thing in this game where you can discard cards for CP. So for every card you discard, you gain 1 CP. So there's also good decision in which cards do I keep, which cards do I get rid of. You know, so, and which cards do I play and when. So great choice, Isaiah. All right, my number 4 is a game called Shelfy Stacker by Shem Phillips. This game is very unique in the way that you use your cards. You'll have a hand of cards that's the same numbers for all players. And each of these cards have special abilities on them that you can play once per game. You decide when you trigger those special abilities. They can be triggered on the turn you play the card, or they can be triggered later on in the game. And that's one of the most fascinating things for me, is being able to decide, I'm going to wait a few turns to play this card. You can even play multiple cards in a turn. After they've already been played, you can, trigger abilities on multiple cards, which I find fascinating. So I may say, I'm going to wait to play, or I'm going to play these cards one turn at a time, because you can only play one card at each turn. But I'm going to trigger these cards on, say, round 4. Maybe they were played on round 1 and round 3. So you decide when you trigger their abilities, and you decide when you play the cards. And then, on top of it, the lower the number, the faster you go, and basically it determines turn order. So whoever plays the number 1 card is generally going to go first. But then there's a tiebreaker. So every card has these letters at the bottom of them that determine the tiebreaker. So this one is a 1, but it's a C. So someone else plays a 1, and they play a 1 with an A down here, they go before me. So there's this really cool push and pull with the players on, oh, I need to go first so I get the dice that I want to draft to score points. So which card should I play this turn? When should I trigger these abilities? It's just fascinating. Highly recommended. I think this game doesn't get enough love, and I don't think there's enough notoriety on this game of Shem Phillips. He's a very well-known designer, but this particular game, a lot of people I think are unfamiliar with. So if you get a chance, check it out, Shelfy Stacker. My number 4.
My number 3 is Sheriff of Nottingham. I like this hand management game a lot, because you can be like, I want to play this turn, or maybe I'll get busted and I'll pay the sheriff this much money, and stuff like that. So here's some cards. This one is a good that you have to sneak in and lie about, like in the game,
What's the difference between the red cards and the green cards?
Well, the red cards are illegal. They do not belong in the town. You can try to snuggle some goods in and be like, see this chicken and this bread? Let's say I have 3 chickens and they believe you. Then you get all these money. And it's at the top, by the way. The yellow stuff is the money. See? And
what happens if you get a red one through town?
If you do, then you gain this much points at the end of the game. It's very high. But if you get hurt by the silk, you have to pay the sheriff. Let's 4 coins. And let's say we try to smuggle 3 of them in. You would have to pay the sheriff 12. It would really hurt. So that's my number 3, Sheriff of Nottingham.
Great choice. Yeah, it's one we played countless times. You decide what goods to put in your bag, and the only thing that you have to say is how many cards, up to 5, that you put in your bag. But whatever you put in your bag is your choice. And then you have to get those goods into town. Try to smuggle them in if you're trying to pull a red good in, or putting multiple goods that are illegal. Or if you're telling the truth, then you don't need to smuggle them in, but sometimes maybe the sheriff thinks that you are trying to lie to him. And so if the sheriff opens the bag, which is really cool, and you're telling the truth, then he pays you money. And so it's fascinating how you can either have to pay the sheriff money, or sometimes he pays you money. It's very fun. Great choice, Isaiah. All right, my number 3 is Heat, Pedal to the Metal. And this is another fascinating use of hand management. So you have a hand of cards that determine your speed and how fast you can go as you're racing. And there's various numbers on these cards, 1 through 5, and you decide which numbers to play. And you can play as many cards as you have on your gears. So you get to shift, downshift, or upshift. If you at a higher speed, then you're able to play more cards. If you're at a lower speed, you play less cards. And so you determine basically how many cards you're going to play each turn. Within you can move up, or shift down. And then that will determine how fast you go. But here's the kicker. You're going around corners, and corners, you can only go so fast around those corners. If you go too fast, you're going to crash. And if you crash, it's going to be bad news because you're not going to do very well in the race. So you have to decide, how fast do I want to go around this corner? And then if you go too fast, you have to pay these heat cards. And you have to basically not pay them from your hand, but you have to draw heat cards into your deck. And then you're going to be drawing more of these from the top of your deck as the game goes on. And if you have all heat cards, you are not going to be able to move, and it's going to be crazy. So then you have to decide, how much do I want to push my luck going around that corner? And then if you have 0 heat, you can't really do anything. You're very limited. So then you have to try to discard heat cards from your deck, which means you have to downshift. And so it's just a fascinating racing game where you're using all these cards to do your speeds and your racing. So that is my number 3, heat pedal to the metal.
My number 2 is Star Wars: The Clone Wars. I like this card drafting hand because I like the style and the special abilities. Like we have this CPO, discard mission planet. Yeah. Add to mission attempt or attack on the mission planet. So you can do 2 damage, which is really good, like gun guys. 2 free damage from this card.
And how often can you use the ally? Is it just one time, right?
1, and you discard it
discard it.
immediately, which is a pain. It's really good though.
So you have cards that are one-time use cards, and then what about those other cards? Are those permanent cards where they stay out?
You just play them, and then they're the guys where you do so many damage, and then you discard them. So you're like, I want to do this much damage. Boom, 1 damage, 1 damage. This one helps you double how much you move, and you have to move in this game, and
what's cool about these, Isaiah, is once you play these cards, they stay out and they're permanent. You get to use them on every turn, and but you have to pick. This is one of the interesting things. You have to pick which color to attack. Remember, on a lot of missions, it requires purple to complete the mission, so you can only play the purple cards to boost your damage. And then what do you use these with in the game, Isaiah? Just so everyone knows, do you use them with dice? Are you rolling dice in the game too? When you're playing this?
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you roll dice and you see how much damage. But sometimes the dice can hurt you a lot. They can deal like 2 to 3 damage, but then you inflict a lot of damage too. So you have to roll well, and there's a die that gives you nothing in your turn. It just skips your whole turn, and it's nothing.
And what can you do if I'm on the same planet that you're on? What can you do on my turn to help me out, and what can I do to help you out?
I can help you. I can put cards towards the mission. It's only on missions, though. Thing. Only on missions. And that's my number 2. Star Wars: The Clone Wars.
Yeah, it's a great cooperative game. If you've never tried it, highly recommend it. All right, my number 2 is Marvel Champions. Marvel Champions is all about the cards. There are tons and tons and tons of cards. So every person in the game, every hero in the game has their own deck of cards. They have unique cards, like for instance, this is one of Captain America's cards called Super Serum. It's unique to Captain America, so no one else in the game will have this card. Then you also have cards that any deck can have that are more generic cards, like this one called Endurance, which gives you extra hit points. So you have special cards, you have generic cards or general cards. One of the things that's fascinating about this game is you're using cards as currency. So in order to play, say, this card here that has a 1 cost, has a 1 on the top, which means how much it costs, you must play one card from your hand, because all the cards will have at least 1 energy symbol on them. So I'd have to play a card in order, or spend a card in order to play a card. So I would need to spend 1 card to play this card. Then you have some cards that will have double energies on them, like this one. This is called Strength. And the double energy gives you 2 energy, so you could potentially play 2 cards with it, or you could play a more powerful card that is a cost of 2, like the Super Serum. So you're using cards as special abilities that are permanent abilities. Some of them are one-time abilities, but you're using also your cards as currency to pay for those cards. And I just find that fascinating. They're multi-use in what they can do. So that is my number 2, Marvel Champions. And for the grand finale, our number 1s. What is your number 1, Isaiah?
My number 1 is Smash Up. I like this card drafting game because I like the style a lot. I like that there's so many factions to choose from and stuff. And this is like Ninja Master. You may destroy a minion onto space, which is really good. That's any minion, which is one of the only persons who does that in the game. And this one is nice because it's a 5 on other people's turns. It's not on your turn. So if they try to score base, let's say we get higher points, we get higher putting towards the base than them.
Break point?
Yeah, higher break point. Then that means we get them higher pay. But sometimes, like these ninja bases, the second place is better. So.
Yeah. Yeah, what's interesting about Smash Up is you're always drawing 2 cards at the end of your turn, so you're always constantly getting new cards. But then you can only play 1 minion and 1 action every turn. So you're very limited. You can't play like your whole hand. You can only play basically 2 cards per turn, unless there's a card that says, hey, break that rule, you can play 2 minions. And there are some that do that, and so you're having to decide, oh, if I play this one, I can play another minion, or I can play another action. If I play this minion, he allows me to play another action. So there's some nice breaking the rule cards that break the rules constantly in the game, and I think that's one of the most interesting things about it, Isaiah, is all the ways you can break the standard rules of the game, and there's so much variety. There's probably 50 factions by now, and you take 2 factions and you shuffle them together, and then that is your deck. And so there's neat combinations, various factions and how they work together, and actually it's probably over 50 actually by now. So a huge variety of cards. Great choice, Isaiah. All right, for my number 1, Western Legends. So this is a sandbox game where you're running around the Wild West, performing various actions, scoring points. But you have a various number of actions each turn. A lot of your actions are determined by the cards in your hand. So you can play poker with these cards, and they're actually a poker deck of cards. So they range, from the low numbers all the way to ace and king and jack, queen, all that. So it's a deck of poker cards, but they're used for various things in the game. So, for instance, the ace, which is one of the strongest cards in the game, it is when you're fighting someone, you would win a duel. If you played the high card, you'd win because you have the high card. But you could also play this with the action. Instead of just playing it in a duel, the action says you gain a point, either a martial or a wanted point. So you could say, I don't want to fight with this card, I just want a point. And points is how you win the game, legendary points. So they're multi-use. This Bulletproof is a jack card, and you can play it in a duel. You could play it for a hand of poker. You could also play this bonus ability after you play the card, which says that this card is played in a fight, cancel any wounds you would gain, and then lose 1 wound. So you want to play this one when you're fighting. So it incentivizes you to play it in a fight. And then we have like what's called a reaction. This is just a low card, a 3, not very good just in a fight, but if you do it as a reaction, it's very good. It says at the end of a move, play this card from hand to move up to 2 additional spaces. So not good in fighting, but very good in movement, because you can only move so much in the game, and so this card lets you move faster. So there's just all these neat combinations of things you can do with the cards. And then the last thing is you can have a maximum of 5 cards in your hand. normally, but then as you get hurt in the game, you take wounds. For every wound you have, you must discard one of the cards from your hand. And then you can have up to 3 wounds in the game, which means at that point you would only have 2 cards in your hand maximum. So there's an interesting kind of push and pull with how many wounds do I want to take, because I start limiting my options as I get hurt. So then you got to go heal your wounds, and once you heal your wounds, then you get to draw another poker card for every wound healed. So it's just a fascinating game where it's almost, the wounds are tied to your health, and then they're multi-use cards. They can be used for various actions. They're used in poker. It's just fascinating. So highly recommend this game for my number 1 Western Legends. And that is it for our list. Hope you enjoyed it. That is, we'll be talking more about some of our favorite games in the future, maybe some other mechanisms that we'll pull out. But this has been our hand management mechanism, and we hope you enjoyed watching it today. We'll see you on the next video.
Bye.
Bye.